Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for the learning of Torah Hashem Be'ezus Hashem Yisbach as we broadcast from our bungalow in Elmshade Estate, South Fallsburg. And we welcome everybody. We always start with giving our Korach Gems to TorahAnytime.com for granting us a platform in many, many countries to teach Torah. And we thank Kol HaLashon for giving us their global reach, and Torah Communications Network, YouTube, Facebook, our wonderful Zoomers. We're broadcasting over large screen hookup to our shul in Agudas Yisrael of Fairways Lakewood. Our subscribers, welcome everyone, as we have a special sponsor this evening, my dear Talmud for decades, A.B. Spry and family, for the yahrzeit of his father, Isur Zev ben Avram Eliyahu. His father should be a Melitz Yosher for his wonderful family, and he should have a lichtige Gan Eden, and grant A.B. and all of us in Shemayim a big intercession for good. If you would like to sponsor one of these Chumash shares, or a daf, or a chak, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. You could text, you could email. This week's Parsha is an extremely vital one. My Talmidim have heard me speak about this Parsha with great urgency for decades. For this week's Parsha talks about one of the most deadliest and common sins of humanity, and that's the sin of fighting, of machlokes. And we know how terrible it is from the incredible disaster that occurred to Korach and his followers. As Rashi tells us, for the human court only punishes at the age of 13 when somebody is a bar mitzvah or a girl at bas mitzvah. The heavenly court only punishes at 20. But for the sin of fighting, even infants die, because even infants died in the Adas Korach. It starts off, Vayikach Korach, and Rish Lakish says, what did he take? He took a mekach ro'ah la'atzmai. He took bad merchandise. What does this mean? So the Sas B'imrasecha says something very succinct and very profoundly simple. The Sas B'imrasecha says that Korach wanted to take covet. And Korach had a gripe that there were brothers. The oldest brother was Amram, and Amram got Moshe and Aaron, the king and the Kohen Gadol. So the next position, Nasi, should have gone to the next brother. That's Korach ben Yitzhar. Assuming Korach ben Kohath. But it didn't go. It went to the youngest brother, to Elitzaphan ben Uziel. So he wanted to take covet. You don't take covet. The covet that you're supposed to get, whatever is decreed from heaven, a person will get. You don't push to get covet. That's the meaning of kol harodef achar hakovet. If a person pursues covet, covet is beireach mimenu. The covet flees from him. A person will find covet that is desired, covet that is chaste, is tremendously elusive. That's what we learn from this. Korach made a big mistake that he tried to take covet. You don't take covet. The Arizal says that Korach was a Gilgal of Cain. He was a reincarnation of Cain, just like Cain sinned because of kinna, because of jealousy. He saw that a fire came down and swallowed up Hevel's carbon, and it didn't swallow up his carbon, and he was consumed by jealousy till the point that he committed murder. He killed his own brother, and at the flood, Cain was almost completely wiped out. So Korach was a Gilgal of Cain, and Korach was also stumbled, and it cost him his life because of covet. But covet, the ugliness of covet, had more to do in the story, in the sorry story of Korach, than just Korach's envy and jealousy of the Nesias of Elitzaphan ben Uziel. The Ben Ish Chai cites a medrash. It's not a well-known medrash. The medrash says that Korach, being one of the most fabulous, wealthy Jews, it's proper, as the Rambam says, that a person should give gifts to his wife proportionate to his wealth. I've said this many times. The Rambam says this clearly. He says you should give kafiyah chaltai, so that if a person is a multi-millionaire, giving a dozen roses on an anniversary won't cut it. A dozen roses and a Hallmark card is good if you're middle class. If you're a very wealthy person, you got to do more than that. So Korach, fitting to his standard, made beautiful bracelets for his wife that went from the palm of her hand all the way till her shoulder. She had beautiful, beautiful, shining bracelets, and it was the envy of the women. And Korach's wife did what was improper, and she went over to Tzipora, Moshe Rabbeinu's wife, and says, you know, your husband is the king, but look, you don't have anything. Now Tzipora didn't answer. Tzipora was smarter than that. Tzipora knew Eishes Chaver Kechaver. She had the biggest prize. But the Medrash says that the Rebbeinu Shalom was Tava El Boino Shel Tzipora. He repaid the insult to Tzipora, and when the first Luchas was destroyed, and Moshe Rabbeinu made the second Luchas from the Sanpiran, from the solid sapphire, which was the most precious gem available, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu kept the Pseilah Shaluchos, and Moshe Rabbeinu, the Medrash says, sent his Rebbetzin, he sent his Rebbetzin to have it designed from her to Ahaliav ben Achisamach, the great designer from the Mat of Dan, to design from her, from this heavenly sapphire, a ring. And when Tzipora wore the ring, everybody was oohing and eyeing, and the wife of Korach was terribly envious and terribly jealous. And in her wrath, from the jealousy, from the consuming jealousy, she seduced her husband to go against Moshe Rabbeinu. Look what Moshe Rabbeinu is doing. He makes a fool of you. He cuts off all your hair and he waves you as a Levi. Right? So but Korach says, but he's also a Levi. She says he wants to get at you so much that he even does it to himself also. And she incited, a wife as a koyach, over and over again to incite her husband. And that jealousy caused Korach to be swayed, and he went against Moshe Rabbeinu, and he went down to the grave. This is something that when we learn it, forewarned is forearmed. You know, there's a famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Hakina v'ataiva v'akavod meitzian es ha'olam min. Jealousy, desire, and honor can eject the person from the world. The very first thing is kina. Kina, jealousy, like it did by Korach, his wife, all his followers, they were meitzian min ha'olam. They were actually removed from the world. This we have to know. It says in Shir Hashirim, Parakeh, Kasha kisha'ol kina. Kina is as difficult as Sha'ol, the netherworld. Now we know that it says that Korach went, Yordu Chayim Sha'ola. So you have to know that Sha'ol, Rabbeinu Bachya tells us that Sha'ol is the bottommost level of Gehenim. Gehenim, says Rabbeinu Bachya, has 7 levels. It probably parallels the Shiva Rakiyas. There's 7 heavens. That's why we say in Yalav Yavo 7 Lashinas, right? There's 7 heavens. So paralleling that, there's 7 levels to hell. The most bottom level is Sha'ol. Sha'ol is made for the very worst sin. The very worst sin is machlokes. That's what Sha'ol was made for. That's what it says. Kasha k'Sha'ol kina. Jealousy causes people to go down to Sha'ol. And that's the consequences of jealousy. Why did Hashem make the ground to swallow up Korach? What the pasuk says, "In Bria Yivra Hashem." If Hashem creates something new, something that never happened. So the Dazakanim says it's a simple midah keneged midah. It's a simple measure for measure, and that is that they wanted to elevate themselves above people. So therefore they were lowered below everybody. Midah keneged midah. That's what the Dazakanim says. The Mayonas HaNetzach says that they said about Moshe Rabbeinu, Madua tisnasu al kal Hashem. Why do you elevate yourself over people? Now in reality, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was more humble than Avram. It says Avram said, Anoichi Ofa ve'efer, I'm earth. It says about Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron, they said, V'nachnu ma. So that means that Moshe Rabbeinu was lower than the earth. If they're saying that Moshe Rabbeinu is elevating himself, then that means they wanted to be less than that, under the earth. So therefore they went under the earth. There is an interesting shach al Torah from the Gurei Ari, written 500 years plus ago. The shach says that they were so wicked that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want them to have a kapara for the Chil Hashem. They desecrated Hashem, talking against Hashem's choices. Hashem chose Aaron. Hashem chose Moshe Rabbeinu. So, Misa is a kapara for Chil Hashem. So Moshe Rabbeinu was mispal that they shouldn't die. They should be Yordu Chayim Sha'ila. They shouldn't get a kapara. Shalah Kaddish says the other way around. Shalah Kaddish says that Moshe Rabbeinu was still hoping that they'll do tshuva till the very last minute. And therefore he said they should descend alive, giving them a little extra time to do tshuva. And that's exactly what happened to the Bnei Korach. Bnei Korach loy meisu. They got a chance to do tshuva. They were there was a ledge that they fell on and they lived. They didn't go down to Gehenna. So Moshe Rabbeinu's request that they should be swallowed up was a mercy to even these people. It's amazing. We know that there was a complete decree against the money of Korach and his cohorts. All their money was swallowed up and was destroyed. Now, it says, it's an amazing medrash. The medrash says that if Korach gave a loan to somebody of even a needle, then in that person's house, the ground opened up and swallowed the needle. In order that Korach should not get any benefit from his money that he's benefiting people. That's a simple explanation. Also, it's simple to understand that Korach used his money for nefarious purposes. It says that by wining and dining the 250 Nesiya Ada, he won them over. So he used his money l'ra for a bad purpose. And by using it for a bad purpose, therefore all that money was destroyed. However, we have to know that Korach, when we see something happen, usually what happens is a build-up. Korach's demise, Korach's downfall, was a build-up of something else very sour that Korach did. The Shevet Musar, in his Einei Ha'eda, quotes a Medrash Yashin. Now, I have to be honest with you, I was not familiar with this Medrash Yashin, and I assume that that's why people tune into the shir to hear things new, to hear things to not only ideas to better ourselves, but also to become more knowledgeable about the Torah. And you know that when I teach, I'm learning with you. So I was completely unaware of this fascinating and sad Medrash Yashin. It's sad about Korach, this story. We know that one of the meanings of avodas perech, the harsh labor of Paro, was perach, that he used first a soft mouth. He said, come be patriotic, let's rebuild Egypt. And what happened is the Jews that are always very patriotic to their host country, that's what it says, having mispalel b'shloimo shel malchus in Pirkei Avos, we're very grateful to our host country. So they came out with full vigor and vim and enthusiasm and alacrity, and they made a lot of bricks. And the Medrash says that Paro said, okay, tomorrow I'm going to double this amount. Because if this is what you did without force, then you could do double with force. So you're going to have to do double this amount of bricks. And maybe that's why it says perech twice. We know that this nefarious plan, diabolical plan of Korach is one of the reasons that we eat the romaine lettuce. People say, what am I eating romaine lettuce? It's not bitter, but the Gemara says that romaine lettuce initially is tchilason raka. Initially it grows soft, but if you leave it in the ground, v'seifan kasha, it becomes hard. So this alludes to the terrible scheme of Paro. Now, what does this have to do with Korach? So the Medrash Yashin says that Korach, who was a Pikeach, saw through Paro's scheme, and he only made one brick. And when Paro's people asked him, why did you only make one brick? He said, look at the Look at the quality of this brick. This is a quality brick. So Korach therefore only had to make 2 bricks, which didn't take him a long time. What did he do with the rest of the time? He made bricks and he offered them for sale to people who didn't make their quota. Because we know that if you didn't make your quota, they took a child instead and buried him in the walls of Pithom and Ramses. So Korach took advantage of the desperation of the Jews, and he made great wealth from taking blood money from the Jews. Now, although the Medrash doesn't say that, I would imagine that if somebody didn't have the money and begged them for the bricks, he didn't give it to them, because he's doing business. Business is business. And therefore children were buried in the walls because he didn't give bricks. And therefore, just like children were buried in the quagmire of the walls, he ended up being buried in the quagmire of the ground. And now we understand why all that money perished. All that money perished because look at the not kosher money. Look how not kosher the money is. So there's a story before this story. Vayikach Korach, and Korach took. So Rashi says, Lokach etz atzmai litzad echad. He took himself to one side, liyos nechlak metoicha eda, to separate himself from the congregation, le'orer ala kahuna, to have a taina on the kahuna. Rashi says that Korach was a pikeach. It's an unusual lashon. Why doesn't he say he was a chacham? What does it mean that he took himself to one side? So the heilige Rapshitza, Reb Naftali Mirapshitza, Tzav Kodesh Bracha, Schus Yogan Aleinu, says a dazzling pshat and backs it up with equally dazzling gematria. He says that a pikeach is someone that's able to look at both sides of the argument. That's a pikeach. Pikeach looks at both sides of an argument. If you don't look at both sides of the argument, you're not a pikeach. And he says, I'll prove it to you. Tzad is b'gematria 94. So tzad plus tzad, 94 plus 94, looking at both sides, is 188. 94 plus 94 is 188. 188 is b'gematria pikeach, is 188. He says if there's an argument and both sides look at each other's side, so then that's pikeach plus pikeach. 188 plus 188 is 376. 376 is b'gematria shalom. The ability to look at both sides is not simple. You know, I remember, it's a small example. It's a small example, but it carries great lessons. Now, when I was in Staten Island, and I was recording for TorahAnytime.com for Kol HaLashon, I used to finish the shir around 9. Then there would be Mariv, and then I would have to dash out after Mariv in order to get to my shir in Borough Park. But the upload for TorahAnytime.com of the shir was a slow process. So during Mariv, while I was davening Mariv, while I was saying, not during Kriya Shema, but while I was saying afterwards, Emes V'Emunah and Hashkivenu, I would put it on. Now, to put it on, you have to edit the film. So for about a second, I had to check, or maybe it's more, 3 seconds. I had to check my voice to where it starts and to where it ends in order to edit it to put it on TorahAnytime.com. And for that few moments, it made a noise. And I had a balabas who freaked out. And when that happened, he would just storm out of the shul. And other people saw that and impacted on other people. And I thought that that was not respectful and the not right reaction. Now, when I got to Lakewood, a simple solution was found. I got an earplug and put it in my ear, and therefore nobody heard it, and nobody didn't disturb anybody. But upon consideration, just like the other side could have thought about maybe an eighth of an earplug, but upon consideration, looking at it from the other person's side, not saying that storming out is a good way of handling it, but here the rabbi, of course, preaches not to talk during davening, and shtika b'tfilah, and, people should concentrate, and here the noise could disturb people during davening. And what kind of example is the rabbi setting? Right? So if you train yourself to look at it from both sides, that's being a pikeach. That's tzad plus tzad. Tzad plus tzad is a pikeach. And when a person is able to, when both parties in an argument is able to do this, and it's very important. I spoke about recently, I wrote an article for this week's Jewish Press, and it's also in the Views, Country Views, and in the Lakewood Scoop. My new grandson, Isaac, became bar mitzvah, so we connect through playing chess. So I said by his bar mitzvah 10 examples of life lessons you could learn from chess. And one of the lessons that I gave was that a good chess player doesn't only look at his plan. Because if he's only focused on his plan, then when he's planning a queenside attack, he doesn't notice that his opponent has an elaborate plan on the king's side, and he's checkmate before he gets any further. So in chess, you have to discipline yourself to see what the other person is thinking. And actually, that's, of course, a Ma'amer Chazal that we're all familiar with. Al todin es chavercha, don't judge your friend until you get in his shoes. You have to see how the other person is looking at something. And that's a pikeach. And Korach was bereft of this. He was lokach etz atzmoi litzad echad. If he would look at it from the other side, what do you mean? You think Moshe Rabbeinu wanted his position? For 7 days he refused it. Shlach biyad tishlach. He ran away from it. Right? And Aaron v'rach of his samach b'libai. He saw that Moshe Rabbeinu was taking over from him, and he was happy. He was not looking for covet. Now, we're going to learn about something even more practical now. Vayikach Korach. What did Korach take? Rashi says, Lokach es atzmai litzad echad. Excuse me. Says Vayikach Korach. Reish Lakish says, what did he take? Lokach mekach ro la'atzmai. He took a bad business. It was a very bad business. It's a very bad deal. So there is a famous teaching of the Shalah HaKadosh. You know, the Shalah was so great. Only a few people in the history of our great people had affixed to their name Kaddish, the Arachaim HaKaddish. One of the people was a Shalah, the Shalah HaKaddish. The Shalah HaKaddish said the following rules. These are rules that people should write down and put on their refrigerator. They should put it on their desk. Sheva dechiyas hein. There are 7 sins that push away great blessings. And the 7 are as follows. Shvuas sheker achas, 1 false oath. Doicha meya zechuyas, pushes away 100 merits. Chilul Hashem echad, 1 desecration of Hashem's name. Doicha meya tfilas, push away 100 prayers. Bizui echad shel Torah, 1 acting disgracefully to Talmidei Chachamim. Doicha meya smachos, pushes away 100 happy simchas. Nivel pe'achas, 1 vulgar speech. Doicha meya haftachos, pushes away 100 promises. Gezela achas, 1 stealing. Doicha meya brachos, pushes away 100 blessings. And machloikes achas, 1 fight. Doicha meya parnasas, pushes away 100 parnasas. And lashon hara echad, doicha meya tshuvas, 1 slander pushes away 100 tshuvas. So now, this sheds light on what it says that Korach took a bad business. Korach was involved in machloikes, lashon hara, bizui talmidei chachamim, and chilul Hashem. So at least 4 of the 7 Korach took. Bizui talmidei chachamim pushes away 100 simchas. Chilul Hashem pushes away 100 tefillas. Lashon hara pushes away 100 tshuvas. And machloikis pushes away 100 parnasas. It's a real mekach, a real bad business. Now let's analyze some of these and see how practical are these warnings of the Shalah HaKadosh. 1 chilul Hashem pushes away 100 tefillas. A person is wondering, how come Hashem is not listening to my prayers? I've asked for help in a lot of different areas. It doesn't seem to work. But the person comes to shul, and when a poor person comes, he's mavaza the poor person. He says, you got some nerve bothering people. Why don't you go out and get a job? That's a chilul Hashem. It's a chilul Hashem. You're judging the poor person? You know his abilities? Maybe he's dyslexic. Maybe he's autistic. Maybe he's not able to hold down a job. Maybe he has poor eyesight. Do you know? Maybe he's seriously ADHD. Here's a person, somebody makes a tikkun in the shul, and he sits down, and there's 8 pieces of kokosh, there's 20 people there, and he takes 3 pieces of kokosh to himself. That's a chilul Hashem. Here's a person where there is, I'm not talking about in a kehillah, where there is never a handicapped person coming in. So, for example, I daven in Satmar, in Lakewood, and because of government rules, they have to have a lot of handicapped places. But I daven there, and I know that no handicapped people ever come to the shul. So I'll park in a handicapped place because everybody does, and there isn't any handicapped people there. But if there are handicapped people coming to the shul, and you park in a handicapped place, that's a chil Hashem. Right? So is it any wonder that Hashem doesn't accept the person's tefillas? There are many examples of this. There are many examples of this. Chil Hashem achas doicha mea tefillas. A person, a yid is driving, and he doesn't let somebody has a right of way. He doesn't let somebody go. Right? A guy is there by the stop sign visibly first, but look, he's more important. And he goes ahead. That the person sees it's a Jew, it's a chil Hashem. These are chil Hashems. A person is in the grocery, in the supermarket, in the ShopRite. And he starts eating the fruit and putting it in his mouth, and goyim see that. That's a chil Hashem. That's a chil Hashem. There's so many examples. And that pushes away tefillas. Chil Hashem achas. Doicha mea tefillas. This is a serious business. And then, when we come to what it says, Bizi echad shel Torah, disgracing a Talmud Chacham, doicha mea smachos, the way people talk about rabbis. Person is mavaze his Rav by walking out right when the Rav gets up to speak, or opens up a sefer and looks at it in front of everybody while the Rav is talking. Or even worse, the Rav is talking between Mincha and Maariv, and he's talking in the back loud on a cell phone. Well, what's that all about? And then people wonder why they're not getting shidduchim, why they're not having children, or their children are not having children. Being mavazeh Talmid Chacham is doicha mea smachos. It pushes away 100 simchas. So this is a very, very, very scary thing. And what about the fact that it says lashon hara echad doicha mea tshuvas? One lashon hara pushes away 100 tshuvas. You know, this Shabbos is Reish Chodesh Tammuz. So Reish Chodesh Tammuz, let's call a spade. I know we don't like to, think about summer being over. It just started. We're just having the July 4th weekend. It's the beginning of the summer. But if it's Reish Chodesh Tammuz, that's 2 months to Elul. So here a person is going to start in 2 months the Yemei HaSlichas V'Rachamim, the time of tshuva, and hopefully during Elul he'll do 100 tshuvas. Hopefully, through all the introspection of Elul and Rosh Hashanah and Aseret Yimei Tshuva, right? In Yom Kippur, he's going to do 100 tshuvas, hopefully. One lashon hara by the swimming pool, one lashon hara under the umbrella table, could be doicha mea tshuvas, could push away 100 tshuvas. That's a serious thing, and it's so easy to happen. You meet people in the summer, you didn't see them the whole week, the whole year. So what's going on in your community? What's the scuttlebutt? What's new in the shul? What's new in business? If you're not careful, what are you going to do? You're going to talk about people. So you go down to Florida. What are the people like over there? You like them better than the city people? Oh, I heard you moved. You moved to Lakewood? Yes, so how is it in Lakewood? What is it, Toms River, Jackson, Lakewood? Is it different? What's it like? Got to be very careful. What do you think about the counselors and the lifeguard? How does it compare to last year? Can't talk about people. Lashon hara achas, doicha mea tshuvas, pushes away 100 tshuvas. This is serious. And then we come, we talk about tuition crisis, the job market crisis, parnasa crisis. One machlokes Doicha Meir Parnassus. Now, at first glance, what does that mean? I mean, you know, a Lashon Hara could be Doicha Meir Tshuvas. A person could do 100 Tshuvas. You know, a person could have many, many simchas. But what does it mean that Machlokes Achas Doicha Meir Parnassus? I mean, you know, I could see maybe he loses a few jobs, but what's Meir Parnassus? And that means because in the Machlokes, it's Kol HaNilvim Elav. So all the people that join the Machlokes, all those people will lose their Parnassus, or their Parnassus will suffer. Machlokes, Machlokes is a terrible thing. Included in Machlokes is the fact that Machlokes is a chelek mavis. It's a portion of death. You have to know how poisonous, how deadly Machlokes is. The great Svardi Chacham, who wrote 200 Svarim, Hagainer of Chaim Pelagi, he writes in a poetic, eloquent way, which is really very scary. Ani hagever ra'isi einai, I, a person, my eyes beheld, miyom she'amadeti al dati, from the day I reached intelligence, ki kol ish ve'isha, any man or woman, mishpacha, any family, Medina, country, Ir city, shahayu beinei machlokes, that had between them fighting, lo yotzu nikiyim, they didn't come out unscathed, habei zakitais, both sides. The nilku bein begufa no bein b'mamayim, they suffered bodily harm and financial harm. Now, Reb Chaim Pelagi is saying something chilling, because he says both sides. Both sides means also the one that was right. You know, most people, what's their heter in their mind? To be involved in a fight? Because they're right. The other party is wrong. If I'm right, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to be stepped upon? If I'm right, I'm right. Right? Might makes right. No, listen, if I'm right, why can't I stick up for what's right? But even so, Reb Chaim Pelagi says, I didn't see anybody who engaged in prolonged fighting come out unscathed. You have to run away from fighting. Now, the consequences of fighting is frightful. The Chidah, Zer Tzav Kodesh Baruch Hu Schus Yagen Aleinu, in his Pnei David writes that the sin of Machlokes brings nezek gadol la'olam, great harm to the world. In other words, Machlokes radiates, and a bad Machlokes brings harm to the world. He says, Oy chas v'shalom petiris tzaddik. If there's a bad Machlokes, the world loses a big tzaddik. And we have to know that this year we're being hit by bomb after bomb. The loss of the Rachman Strifka Rebbe, recently a young man, the Kosovo Rebbe, who I heard from the Krul Rebbe, Zolzain Gesund. Kosovo Rebbe was especially needed in our generation. He was very involved with children off the derech, as is the Krul Rebbe. The Krul Rebbe told me very humbly that the Kosovo Rebbe had a big pictures. So what a loss. The great Rav Wolfson, now the Zidicheva Rebbe in Chicago, Rav Eichenstein, just name but a few. Or, the Chidah says in the Pnei David, there'll be a hit on the Torah learning in the world, or a loss of money. And here with the attack now on the yeshiva light in Eretz Yisrael, with the threat of a draft, we could trace that also to machloikis in the world. Machloikis is a poison that comes to the world. Reb Chaim Pelagi adds also in his Kaf HaChaim, Reb Chaim Pelagi adds that if somebody fights with his spouse or her spouse on Shabbos, it causes harm. He says it will happen a mikra ra b'shvua. That will cause something bad to happen the next week. This is very scary. Talk about even avoiding machloikis, even when you're right. They say over from the Heilige Rosh Hashiva of Ponevezh, the guy in Rabbi Yosef Shlomo Kahaneman. I remember the last time I was in Eretz Yisrael with my Rebbetzin Shoshi, and we went to Bnei Barak. So it was actually when I was starting our new shul in the Agudas Yisrael Beizev, and Rav Yosef Kahaneman was the great builder of Ponevezh, and he had vision, and he was a great pioneer. And here I was pioneering a new shul, and I spent quite a while by his kever asking him to be a melitz yosher, that I should have atzlacha in the formation of the new shul. Baruch Hashem, it's b'li ayin hara, with the help of a wonderful olam, it's seeming to succeed. But I remember davening there. I also remember what Rabbi Weins, Zolzan Gesund, told me. I once asked him, he was a great biographer of tzaddikim. So I once asked him who was the most incredible tzaddik that he met. Now, I was expecting him to tell me either the Satmar Rebbe, because I knew he knew the Satmar Rebbe in Miami, or perhaps Rav Moshe, because he knew Rav Moshe from Monsey when he visited his son-in-law and his daughter, Rav Tendler and Rebbetzin Shifra, Aleim HaShalom, or maybe Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, or maybe Rav Soloveitchik, Rav Yashel Ber, who was his Rebbe. He surprised me. He told me that the greatest personality, the one he found the most incredible, was Rav Kahaneman. And he knew Rav Kahaneman from Miami Beach, when he used to be a Rav in Miami Beach. And Rav Kahaneman came down, and Rav Kahaneman used to ask him to collect for Ponevezh Yeshiva, and he went around with him, and he said he learned an amazing amount from Rav Kahaneman. I want to share with you what a Maisa with Rav Kahaneman about machloikis, which tells an incredible amount. Rav Kahaneman was collecting in England for Ponevezh. He went all over the world to collect. And somebody there acted very, very badly, with chutzpah publicly, and said not nice things to Rav Kahaneman Barabim. And the rabbis of the community reacted. They wanted to excommunicate this man. The Kfay Torah, you shall imagine, Rav Kahaneman, whose wife and family was completely killed in the Holocaust, and he dedicated every waking hour. He said he wanted to rebuild what was lost. And as an older man, traveled the world. Imagine this person was Mavazer of Kahaneman. And he pleaded with them that they should not do anything to the person. And when the people were surprised. I mean, They said Rav Kahanim could be Michael on his covet, but what about the covet of the Torah? People have to see that we're defending the honor of Torah. Rav Kahanim told them that the Chavetz Chaim, Zechet Tzavik Kodesh V'Rachas Chus Yagan Aleinu, gave him a personal bracha. And he said that the Chavetz Chaim told me, Ata tiya ish matzliach. You will be a prosperous, successful person. B'chol asher tifneh v'tasa. Whatever you turn to and do, you will have success. B'kol mamish, everything, l'hoitzi davar echad, with the exclusion of one thing. V'hu machlokes. In this matter of any fight, b'davar zeh af pam lo yitira atzlacha. If you're involved in it in any way, you won't see success. Or b'shum ha'ofen lo tatzliach. So even though this person acted like a meshugana, right? And Rav Kahanim was definitely 100% right, but he didn't want to engage. That's how far a person should run from achloikas. I'm going to tell you another extraordinary story, which is cited in the Ma'iris Hagdolim. The Ma'iris Hagdolim says that the Alta from Nevardik, the Alta Nevardik got a report that a wealthy, big Moikir Rabbanon passed away in Germany, and he publicized in his tzavah that he had a magnificent building, and he wanted to leave it to the Nevardika yeshiva. So immediately, the Alton from Nevardik, who's a very busy man, booked a journey to go to Germany to secure the building, which could be a very, very big salvation for the poverty of Nevardik. On the journey, he met a Rosh Yeshiva, and he says, "What brings you to Germany?" So Rosh Yeshiva told him that this person who he was going to left in a tzavah that he's giving this building to his yeshiva. So as the Ma'iris Hagdolim said, the Alton from Nevardik sniffed that this would be a terrible machlokes. As soon as he arrived in Germany, he turned right around and departed. He didn't even go to look into the matter. He ran from machlokes. He right away was mavater. I can't imagine what it would mean in those days. It could have been a salvation for the yeshiva for years. But he ran away from machlokes. Machlokes, that's what we learn from the Adas Korach. From the Adas Korach we learn that a person should run from machlokes. I'll tell you another story. This story is brought down in the Eitzes HaTorah. In the Eitzes HaTorah, it says that there was a Rav that came to the great Rav Shach, the subsequent great Rosh Yeshiva of Ponevezh, and he said to Rav Shach that, he's trying to make takonos for the betterment of the ruchnius of the kehillah, and some people who, don't like it, they want to be left alone. They're spreading terrible things about him, and they're saying not nice things about him and about his family. So Rav Shach pacified him and said, "You're doing the milchama of kedusha. When you do milchama of kedusha, they're going to shoot arrows at you. These are the arrows." And then Rav Shach took him into the next room where he had a svarim shank, and he bent down and he took out a loose leaf. And in it was full of kol kaires, against Rav Shach. So the Rav was amazed. He said, well, is this a misery collection? He says, why don't you tear them up? So Rav Shach says there are certain people, when they pass away and they wrote Svarim, they would say that they should keep their Svarim on their coffin, so that it should be a protection for them, their Svarim that they wrote. He says, I won't keep my Sefer on the coffin, my Svarim. I'll keep these Kol Kaires. Because you look away from people that want to start machloikis from you, that's a machzeh, that's a protection, that's a cloak of protection when a person gets to the next world. It reminds me of something that my dear friend, Rav Shmuel David Friedman, the great mechaber of Stei Seifim on Shas, and other wonderful svarim like the Mitzvah Va'isa and so many other wonderful svarim, he told me that he knew the personal doctor of Rab Shlomo Mababov, and he said that Rab Shlomo Mababov's personal doctor told him that on examining Rab Shlomo Mababov, when he was already 90, he was amazed that Rab Shlomo Mababov had a perfectly straight spine. And he asked the Baba Rebbe, how is it possible at 90 to have such a straight spine? So the Baba Rebbe said simply, it's not simple at all, but he said simply, I'm living in Borough Park for 50 years and I don't have one enemy. That's why my spine is perfectly straight. And it's known that there were times that the Baba Rebbe had people that didn't like what he was saying, and they put out kaires against him, proclamations. And the Hasidim wanted to retaliate. So the Rebbe said, I moichel them, but any one of my people that will attempt to retaliate in my defense, I'm not moichel, and his language was bezeh ubaba, in this world and the next. That's the way the great people ran away even when they were right. And this is something that we always need to remember. Because, of course, why do people engage in machlokes? Because they are convinced that they're 100% right, and you have to fight for what's right. And the answer is what I told my children all the time. I told my children that just like some people are allergic to bee bites, and if they see a bee, they stay clear out of its path. They're allergic. Right? So we're allergic to fighting. Our family is allergic to fighting. And many times my children would call me and say, should I get involved in this? And I said, you don't hang around quicksand. If you sink in, they'll never see you again. So you keep a wide berth. Machlokes is a chelik maves. It's quicksand. That's what happened. I'll conclude with something that I say all the time in Parshas Korach. There's much more to say about this. I'll continue talking about this subject for the Shabbos table in Yetz Hashem tomorrow. There's much more to say about this subject. For now, I'll just say that Reb Miller was asked, if people get swallowed in the ground for fighting, why isn't there sinkholes all over the world? In places where there's fighting, there should be sinkholes. And Reb Miller says, scarily, there is. You go to cemeteries and you see people buried young. He says many people, the ground opens up because they're fighting and they leave this world early. So we have to be forewarned to really avoid jealousy, to really avoid fighting, and that's chus. Hashem should bless us with the blessing of Shalom and all the blessings of Torah. Have a good night and a good Shabbos.